Welcome back. I'm joined again by Barry Bussey, President and CEO of First Freedoms Foundation and author of this book, 210 Degrees, 16 Ways the Truckers Ignited Canada for the Long Haul. Thanks, Barry. I'm really enjoying this discussion because, again, even though it's been 3 years since the convoy happened, over 3 years, it's good to refresh. We forget our history, don't we? Or even in this case, recent events. So when the convoy descended and hundreds of thousands of Canadians joined in uniting with fellow like-minded Canadians, I guess you could say, Trudeau did respond. The then Prime Minister Trudeau responded, and there was the invocation of the Emergencies Act because there was concerns about clearing the convoy, no noise, etc. But with that invocation, there has been concerns of potential government overreach. How has the invocation of that Emergency Act how has that trickled down? Do we still have those concerns of government overreach, or now that there's been a commission that we can put that behind us?
Well, no, I think that we need to be concerned. And remember, it took a long time before the government ever invoked the Emergencies Act. It was a modern version of the War Measures Act, which we had back in at the time of World War I. But now that we've got another precedent where a prime minister used it to break up what is in essence was a peaceful protest against his policies, there is no, I think the idea of a prime minister using the act again is something that we should be concerned with, because these are tremendous amount of powers given to the politician who's the prime minister. Now, while there are some, checks and balances on it, it has to ultimately be approved by Parliament and all that kind of stuff after a few days or after a week or whatever it is. But nevertheless, I think we need to be mindful that whatever a prime minister says that is reaching the level of a national emergency. And already, Prime Minister Mark Carney now has been using language like, well, maybe we'll be bringing in the Emergencies Act to deal with the tariff issue and to deal with, the economic situation in Canada. Well, one of the things we've learned, certainly with the invocation against the truckers, was that it was totally unnecessary, absolutely unnecessary. And not only that, in that particular case, it was ruled unconstitutional by Justice Mosley at the federal court. And even now with the issue of tariffs and that kind of stuff, there's plenty of room in the office of prime minister to be able to have the authority to be able to deal with any kind of economic crisis that we have. We do not need to have these kinds of powers being used by the government yet again to satisfy and deal with the concerns that the United States has with respect to tariffs or anything else. It just strikes me as it would be another overreach, and we recognize that our fundamental freedoms are basically held in abeyance when this kind of power is used.
So even though there was public pushback or public perception of the convoy, not all, some. There were some in the public who really felt this was terrorism. That here you had a group of truckers, a large group of truckers who just overtook the nation's capital. They weren't moving. There were concerns of honking. There was concerns of public disturbance, allegations of violence. I disagree. I didn't see any, but from any media coverage, it was bizarre. Excuse me. But there were concerns from the public, and people said, put an end to this. So was the prime minister not justified in responding to those concerns?
Well, we saw already that Justice Mosley says no. And I agree with him. And in this book, I put forth an argument that it was unconstitutional and it was totally unnecessary. All the prime minister had to do was get out of his cottage on the grounds of Rideau Hall and go down and speak, or invite some of the leaders of the convoy up to the cottage or to some office in the parliamentary block and sit down with the people and have a conversation. What is so fascinating, he was willing to do that with all kinds of protests that occurred before, whether it was blocking the trains, whether it was, showing up throughout the country with the Black Lives Matter protests and all the rest. He even took a knee with the Black Lives Matter.
That's
But
right.
the problem is that he did not like the politics. He did not like the language. He did not like why these people were rising up on the convoy. And so now he's taking favorites on which protests he would support and which he won't.
Right.
And all he had to do was sit down and have a conversation.
And it never happened. Now we're going to pick up this
Never happened.
conversation in just a few moments.